Hello, and welcome to Prepared Foods Solutions TV. I'm Chief Editor Bob Garrison. We're excited about this new 20-minute platform, which lets us showcase the best of everything, from ingredients to innovation. And it's here that we go straight to the source with industry-leading experts. Today's episode is called Future Forward Snacking: What Changes and What's Next? This in-depth discussion will help viewers learn how alternative plant-based proteins and other ingredients factor into new snacks, how clean label considerations impact both formulation and consumer decisions, and how sustainable food packaging may influence future R&D formulations. Joining me today are two executives from Kalsec Incorporated, Dr. David Johnson, European Director of R&D, and Jennifer Young, Antioxidants Application Manager. Based in Kalamazoo, Michigan, Kalsec is a 66-year-old company and a global supplier with a full portfolio of natural food and beverage ingredients for savory food and brewed beverage applications. Specifically, Kalsec solutions address natural color, food protection, and taste and sensory attributes. So let me start with you, David. I see that going back as far as 2013, your doctoral work studied active packaging, natural antioxidants, and clean label ingredients, which makes you the perfect source for today's discussion. In your opinion, what have been a few major shifts and challenges in snack formulation during the past decade? And when did an emphasis on more clean snacking first appear? And perhaps how has that changed the way in which formulators approach their work?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Bob, for having me on the program. I think I just came into the field at the right time. So you mentioned going back all the way to the PhD, a little more than 10 years ago, started looking at active packaging. And at that point, the clean label movement was really hitting its stride. We're getting a lot of requests from industry when I was working in academia saying, hey, we need to move into a more clean label direction. How can we modify this packaging to get that result? So really starting to see things kick off then, and it's just really evolved since 10 years ago. But what I've seen a lot in the snacking industry is an increase in the amount of novel ingredients. So 10, 15 years ago, you would really not see much on the market in terms of things fried in avocado, for example. You wouldn't have seen that many things made with lentil or cauliflower, but we see a lot of extruded products, particularly over the last 5-10 years, that are incorporating these really novel ingredients, very plant forward, especially in the last few years post-pandemic, when everyone's really thinking about health and wellness. So I think that's been one of the big drivers over the last 10 years in the snacking industry, is this idea that, okay, snacking is indulgent, but snacking, you can also make better for your decisions.
Okay.
In terms of natural ingredients, we've really been in this space for 66 years. So it's nothing new to us at Kalsec, but what we're seeing more from our customers. So I mentioned the consumer before, but our customers are food companies making a finished product. They're asking more and more for these natural ingredients and ways to increase their use, increase the use of stabilized colors, natural preservatives, so that these products can taste great, be natural, last.
Okay, so now Jennifer, I'll direct this question to you. There's probably not been a more dynamic category than that of snacking, which particularly with a host of like emerging plant-based ingredients of all types. And I wanted to ask, in what ways have these new ingredients impacted formulation in regard to antioxidants?
Sure. Yeah. Consumers are always looking for something new. And snacking is a really easy way to kind of dabble in being an adventurous eater. So one of the easiest ways to attract those consumers is to incorporate some novel ingredients. We're also seeing an increased interest from consumers wanting to increase their protein intake. And with the overall trend of plant-based, it's not surprising that we're seeing a lot of plant-based ingredients being used in snacks. However, plant-based ingredients are not the same as maybe some of those conventional ingredients. For example, in like a gluten-free cracker, they'll be utilizing a nut flour rather than like a wheat flour. And bakers are going to know that without that gluten, that there's going to be differences in texture and the dough properties, and that's going to impact how it is being manufactured. However, there's also a really significant difference in the fatty acid profile that is coming from those nut-based ingredients. The saturated fats are the unsaturated fats are much higher with nut-based ingredients, and those are more prone to oxidation. And that's going to lead the product to develop painty aromas and flavors, cardboard aromas and flavors, just generally something unpleasant in a much shorter time frame than with those conventional ingredients. And ultimately, shelf life is going to be a concern when using some of these novel ingredients.
Yeah.
Even when they are in snacks that are more conventional, like a cracker, for example. So when a developer is looking at innovating and trying to incorporate novel ingredients, they're going to have to look beyond how those ingredients resonate with consumers and how they function in manufacturing, and look at how that is going to impact shelf life, particularly through oxidation. And so adding an antioxidant into the conversation about incorporating novel ingredients, that's going to help bridge the gap and make your novel new snack ingredient really successful.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about how this interacts in regard to clean label, in terms of how that comes into consideration.
The desire to use novel ingredients is often from a labeling standpoint, and there's the need to also use natural solutions to bridge any sort of functional gaps. So Kalsec offers a variety of natural antioxidants to provide that stability that is necessary so that shelf life targets are being met.
We see, okay, so I'm gonna shift here. So David, we see greater consumer interest in sustainability in all its forms, from regenerative agriculture and upcycled ingredients all the way to the world of packaging. And I'm wondering if you could help connect some of the dots for us. If a manufacturer wants to consider more earth-friendly packaging materials, perhaps including compostable, how would that approach, how could that approach impact formulation strategy?
Yeah. So I think the first thing to say is that we've seen that consumers are making choices based off of packaging. I know myself, when I see something that's traditionally packaged in the plastic, we'll say chewing gum, now that it can be packaged in paper, it's like, oh, that's interesting. And that influences the consumer's purchase decision. So we're seeing that go all the way through the supply chain, and then also directives from regulatory bodies dictating that, hey, you need to be able to increase recyclability. But this also puts a lot of pressure on formulations. So the product developer is looking at the product and saying, okay, I have a certain shelf life for this product now, but I need to be able to increase this recyclability or compostability. What do I need to consider? And that's really a holistic approach. So anytime in science, you don't want to change too many variables at once. So when you change a variable, you need to see how that impacts the formulation. And in this case, when you change packaging, it's really going to potentially change shelf life a lot. So when we move to a more compostable packaging, before, when I was doing my PhD work, we had mentioned that before, a lot of it was saying, what more can packaging do? Right? So what other functionalities can we deliver? Now it's saying, hey, yeah, keep that functionality, but use less of the packaging. Inevitably, there's going to be a trade-off, right? You can't have the best of both worlds. So when we use less of the packaging or use a material that's compostable, has more oxygen transmission across the barrier, more light exposure, this increases the susceptibility that product's going to go rancid, or it's going to have a reduced shelf life. So what formulators can think about is saying, okay, we're changing what it's packaged in. Maybe we can tweak the formulation a little bit too. And that's where these natural ingredients like rosemary extract can be added into a formulation, not affect the sensory properties, but then increase the shelf life of that product. Because when you go to a more compostable, you're likely to reduce the shelf life. But having these products in there can increase the shelf life back to where you were when we had more traditional, very protective packaging.
Okay, so Jennifer, here's another question for you. And in looking at your background, I see that you wrote an article called "Sustainable Packaging: Implications for Oxidation and Shelf Life," which is kind of right at the heart of what we're talking about.
Sure.
And my first question here is based on your research and insights. What should snack formulators consider in the near future that might not be on their radar at the moment? And I don't know, if you want to give this more of a packaging spin or I'll just leave it up to you.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think that sustainable packaging is without a doubt on the horizon. There are both consumers who are interested in seeing their products that they're purchasing having sustainability. But there's also regulations in the works. The European Union has new regulations that are going to require food manufacturers to increase their packaging sustainability, which is going to require the food industry to make pretty substantial changes. Those changes can also lead to shelf life hurdles. And that was something that, in the article that you mentioned that we were considering, we've always known that packaging plays a really critical role in a product's shelf life. And we suspected that a change in the materials that are being used in a package to make it more sustainable would reduce its impact on shelf life. And that was in fact shown in the study in the article that you're referencing. So we put popcorn, just popcorn ready to eat, into compostable packaging and in a standard like conventional metallized bag. And the popcorn in the compostable package started to produce those oxidized aromas and flavors, cardboard paint, much faster than it was in the metallized conventional bag. So it's certainly a concern. It's worth noting that compostable packaging is only one approach to increase packaging sustainability. And we are also suspecting that some of the other approaches are also going to have stability concerns. A really common approach that we're seeing is a reduction in the number of layers in like a laminated film. And that allows for that packaging material to be recycled by reducing the number of layers, which is great, but it also increases the permeability. And that can cause there to be a reduction in shelf life. So regardless of the motivation, if it's to appeal to consumers or to be in regulatory compliance, there is a need to look at how their packaging selection is going to impact shelf life and oxidation and any sort of longevity of your product.
Yeah. And so just as a quick follow-up, are you finding, so it's interesting to think about how product development is such a multifaceted
Absolutely.
team sport. And are you finding in your discussions and work with clients, are you finding, packaging engineers called right in, into the process to have discussions like this?
So I think that is a newer thing that is happening now, as there starts to be a focus on sustainability rather than maybe as there's a focus on sustainability, there's definitely an impact on the food itself rather than it being something that's customer facing. It is having a stronger impact on the food itself. And so those conversations are either happening proactively on those manufacturers who recognize that this is a very dynamic system and everything is interplaying. And then there's some others who are wanting to make the change and then recognizing, oh, I've made this change and now I'm not getting the shelf life I was expecting. And so there's both sides of it. And so knowing that there's a reason to be concerned, there's a reason to have those conversations earlier.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you, just like looking ahead to next year, is there anything that you would like to see that you think would be the next logical step forward or a good step forward, in your opinion, in this whole area of healthy snacking and sustainability?
I would love to see those conversations, like I was saying, happen earlier. We love to see novel ingredients. We love to see sustainability. We love to see consumers, having the desired snacking experience that they want. And there's a lot of factors that go into play to making that all play together. And so the sooner you start making those connections and understanding how it's not just a siloed solution, it's a multi-factored solution, makes that the time to market faster. It makes the consumers happier and ultimately helps the snack manufacturer be more successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Okay. David, I see you've led Kalsec's European business for nearly a year now. Are you noticing any clean label snacking trends, such as those involving ingredients and packaging, et cetera, that might come to the United States next year in 2025? And if so, can you share a few examples?
Yeah, I think we often look to Europe as saying, okay, what are they doing? Is that going to go to the United States? But from what I've seen as an American based in Europe now, is that the US are pretty good at snacking. A lot of European culture is based on traditional meals. When I look to American culture, we're very much a snacking culture, and we're a little bit more open minded in what you can have as a snack. But what I'm
Mhm.
seeing a lot in the market here, and I was just in the grocery store today, is twist on the familiar. So they have a really wide range of different type of chips, and I'm seeing, we'll say, a couple different trends. One, it has a lot to do with social media. So one thing I saw today, and I don't know if it's present in the U.S. market too, but it's a collaboration with Burger King. I think it's Doritos, and it's doing a Whopper flavored chip. So I found that very interesting. The combining of two companies
Uh-huh.
to really push something that maybe it's a craze on TikTok or other type of social media.
Mhm.
But other things, sustainable packaging is definitely big. We see that in Europe and the UK of going away from plastics and using more things that are like paper or more
Mhm.
compostable materials. That's for sure. But one trend that I'm seeing globally, I was just at the SnackX conference in Stockholm, Sweden, which is a global conference for savory snacks,
Mhm.
and a lot of emphasis on spice. So not just spice in terms of pungency and, oh, that's really hot, but very specific regional. And in the store today, I saw it was a Thai spice that had a lot of heat. So no matter where you go in the globe, heat is very popular. Of course, different range of heat, but yeah, we're seeing a lot of different elements
Mhm.
based on heat and specialty peppers. In addition to that, we're just starting to see a little bit more on plant-based being the base of these ingredients, but I see more of that actually taking off in the US.
Okay, so David, so you just mentioned spices, and maybe as a follow up here, I see that you guys announced kind of some joint collaboration with Timus in Italy, which specializes in kind of consumer sensory research. And I wanted to ask you about how you are partnering with them, in relationship to snacking and spices and your kind of continued push in innovation.
Yeah, great question, Bob. And we're really looking forward to working with Timus. And I think it really captures the spirit of what innovation happens in today's world. This is an example of open innovation and collaboration. So really putting all the chips on the table and working with a partner to arrive at a solution faster. So with Timus, we're hopefully going to pair our technical expertise in the area of spices and ingredients and combine that with their sensory research. So what their piece of equipment is able to do, it's able to pick up in real time as you're wearing this equipment and you're tasting something, what you're really thinking, in the sense of it's capturing these brainwaves, which then turns it into, do you like this product? Is it causing you to relax? Is it causing you to engage? And this can help us with subtle nuances in product formulations and really drive towards what's going to be engaging for a consumer and what might lead to a better product formulation. So it's this idea of, okay, how can we partner with other people in our ecosystem for Kalsec to arrive at products that are very regionally specific and engaging for consumers?
And you had mentioned the Thai spice, and again, spice is kind of becoming very regional. Do you see anything else you'd want to share with where you maybe see spices going
Yeah,
in the next few years?
for sure. We're seeing a lot of work in spice blends, and we're seeing consumers from other cultures, particularly here in Europe, and then also notice in the United States, experiencing cultures from far away. So using snacking as a form of almost tourism, right? So it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm tasting this very specific. It's no longer just spicy chips. It's Thai curry or a very specific province in India. It's gochujang coming out of Korea. It's
Yeah.
really interesting, and companies like Kalsec can provide specialty peppers, authentic flavor profiles to help snacking companies reach this audience.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, Jennifer, here's my last question for you. We've also seen new oils, such as avocado oils, incorporated into snacks. And I have kind of a range of questions, similar questions for you here. The first is, in what ways do these new oils impact shelf life? And do they also impact antioxidants and their functionality or capacity? And then finally, what are there specifics that you think formulators need to consider that they may not know?
So yes, novel oils are, like avocado or anything else that's maybe not a little less conventional is a really solid way to attract consumers. The appeal for those novel oils is that they are healthier. They have a much higher level of unsaturated fat than maybe some of those other conventional traditional oils. And so while the unsaturated fats in those novel oils is healthier, it also makes them less stable and more likely to oxidize. So a really great way to bridge that gap is to use a natural antioxidant to increase the stability and ultimately the shelf life, meeting something that might be more typical of a traditional ingredient. That's very likely that a manufacturer has been able to reach their shelf life targets with some of the more traditional oils that are being used without the need of an antioxidant. But as the fatty acid profile changes, there is going to need to be a reason to consider how shelf life is being impacted and potentially incorporating a natural antioxidant. There could also be the kind of the opposite side of a financial incentive, as there's a reason to reformulate. Likely there was a more premium oil being used that comes with a more premium price tag. And by changing to something that's more conventional, there could also be a reduction in stability, and adding an antioxidant to bridge that gap is also a really solid approach. You can still achieve your cost reduction targets without having to compromise any sort of shelf life.
Yeah.
And this is true for all sorts of snacks. Different types of snacks are going to have different types of processing, which will require different points of addition and potentially different specific antioxidant ingredients. So that could be anything from, a rosemary extract, something with a mixed tocopherol. Kalsec has a whole portfolio, a lot of options. We also have a range of physical forms. So, maybe you need something that's water soluble or something that's oil soluble, a powder, a liquid. All of that is something that needs to be considered, and it's a lot to consider. So relying on a technical expert is going to help you get to market faster. So that you're able to be successful with a product launch. However, sometimes the timeline is even more aggressive than is going to allow for a true shelf life study. And in that case, there's an argument to be made that adding an antioxidant proactively to ensure that a consumer is getting a positive experience with the first time that this novel new snack is being consumed is a really solid approach to being successful.
Okay. All right. And that's all the time we have for today. And I want to thank you for your time and insights.